Here we'll cover the electrical installation of the Hydronic Aqua System. Use cable lengths and cross-sections that ensure a maximum voltage drop of 0.5 volts. Make quality connections to avoid false contacts and voltage drops on the connections. When connecting to a battery management system, make sure it is capable of handling high current without cutting power or significantly reducing the voltage. Insulate the end of unused wires. The wiring harnesses and connections are universal, so additions or modifications will be required based on the layout and requirements of the installation, such as cutting wires to length, extending wires, crimping terminals, assembly connector housings, and making proper connections. These additions or modifications are not included in the scope of supply. Several harnesses have CAN bus termination resistors integrated to them, under yellow tags with a "Do not bend here" warning, so be careful to not bend and break them. Make sure to not mix up the CAN wires, blue with red stripe and blue with black stripe, when assembling the connectors. CAN bus cables should not be extended using anything other than the provided extension cables. Avoid running CAN cables alongside AC or high current DC cables to minimize signal interference. Follow the electrical diagram and detailed explanations given on the installation manual. Let's take a look on all the required electrical connections. We'll begin by placing the main system components. We have the hydronic S3 heater, the fuel metering pump, the touchscreen, the input and output controller, the coolant pump, the room temperature sensor, the high output module, the electrical heating output, the two silencer 2 units, and the EasyScan connection cap that is already assembled on the harness and that can be removed to connect the EasyScan diagnostic tool. It must remain in an accessible position for any required service. Now let's start connecting these components with the different harnesses. The hydronic S3 harness connects to the bottom of the hydronic S3 heater, on the two connectors shown. Please note that one connector on the heater is not used, since the coolant pump is controlled by the input and output controller and not by the hydronic S3 heater. This harness must be connected to the battery power and ground using the provided fuses. There are 3 wires in one branch of the harness that must be individually insulated, in addition to another wire close to the heater connector which must also be insulated. The gray Deutsch 4-pin termination resistor cap must be removed and discarded, since it is not used on the system. Together with the hydronic S3 harness, it is included a fuel metering pump cable that must be connected on one end to the fuel metering pump, and the other end must be cut to length, assembled with the connector provided, and then connected to the hydronic S3 harness. There are 2 harnesses that connect to the I/O controller, the I/O controller output harness and the I/O controller power harness. The 2 connectors have tabs, so there is no risk of mixing where they are supposed to go. The I/O controller output harness also connects to the electric heating output and to the silencer 2 units. We will detail these connections on the next slides. There are 3 wires that must be individually insulated. There is one additional wire for the coolant pump that we'll cover shortly. The I/O controller power harness must be connected to battery power and ground through the provided fuse. The touchscreen harness is connected to the touchscreen. Power is provided to it from the I/O controller power harness directly or through an intermediate cable which we will discuss shortly. This touchscreen harness connects to the room temperature sensor, and there is one wire that must be insulated. The CAN-E extension cable connects the hydronic S3 harness and the I/O controller output harness that we just mentioned. It also connects to the high output module. There is one connector on the high output module that is not used. Depending on how far away the touchscreen and the I/O controller are positioned from each other, the connection between the touchscreen harness and the I/O controller power harness can be made directly or by using the CAN-P extension cable, whose part number is the same as the CAN-E extension cable. In case the CAN-P extension cable is required, the third connector of it is not used. The coolant pump cable connects on one end to the coolant pump. The connector on the other end must be cut out, and the 3 wires should be connected to the battery ground, the I/O controller output harness, and the other insulated as shown. Here you have something similar to what you can find on the installation manual, but showing the different component images and the harness part numbers that you can use as a reference to help you during the installation. Next, let's take a look on the electrical installation of the air heat exchangers, the 2 Silencio 2 units. Each Silencio 2 unit has 2 fans, making a total of 4 fans. Each fan has 3 wires. The brown wire of each fan is connected to battery ground. There are 3 wires coming from the I/O controller output harness. The orange wire from the I/O controller output harness connects to the red wires of all 4 fans. The other 2 wires from the I/O controller output harness, orange with white stripes and orange with black stripes, must go through the diode assembly, connecting the same color wires. The diode assembly doesn't have any specific direction. What matters are the wire colors. The orange with white stripes wire coming out of the diode assembly must be connected to one fan on each Silencio 2 unit on the orange wires. Finally, the orange with black stripes wire coming out of the diode assembly must be connected to the still unconnected orange wires, one on each Silencio 2 unit. It is this connection through the diode assembly that enables 3 different working speeds for the system, even though each fan only has 2 speeds, which are the red and orange wires on each fan. More information on this logic of operation is available on the installation manual. The electrical heating installation is shown here. Remember that the switching device is not included in the scope of supply and must be acquired by the end user or installer following the general requirements given on the installation manual. There is only one wire coming from the I/O controller output harness as a signal to the switching device. The heating element and the thermostat switch of the coolant reservoir are connected on either connector of the Y cable. Do not connect the Y cable to an unswitched plug, otherwise the electrical heating will be on regardless of what is selected on the controller. Do not turn on the electrical heating when both the heating element and the thermostat switch are not submerged in coolant, otherwise the heating element will overheat and burst. At the end of the installation, make sure you have not mixed the CAN-E and CAN-P circuits. On the CAN-E circuit, you should be connected the I/O controller output harness, the CAN-E extension cable with the high output module, and the Hydronic S3 harness. On the CAN-P circuit, you should be connected the I/O controller power harness and the touchscreen harness, with the option to use the CAN-P extension cable between them. Make sure to measure the CAN bus resistance on the CAN-E and CAN-P circuits. It should be 60 ohms plus or minus 2 on both circuits. There are several places where those resistance can be measured, with some suggestions given here, which I'll let you read by yourself as you need. Thanks for watching, and until next time.